Welcome to HW Hockey.
What's up, you beauties? Welcome to High and Wide Radio, episode 41 of season 6. I'm your host, Jim Icavone, joined by the one and only Jack Smith. If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed, like the episode, and hit the bell for notifications whenever we put out new content. And we have a lot to catch you guys up on tonight. As I mentioned, if you're watching us live on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed. If you're listening to us as a podcast, which we release later on tonight, please listen to us on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Make sure you're subscribed. Get notifications the minute we upload an episode. Jack, we got to make this a quick one tonight. So with no further ado, let's get to our topics. And we got a lot. And I don't think we've had the opportunity to talk Michkov yet since the news has been announced. But Matvei Michkov is coming over. Just in case you didn't hear yet. But obviously I want to hear your excitement. I want to hear from our listeners, the excitement from around the NHL, especially here in Philadelphia, South Jersey. Michkov's coming over. Apparently, his contract's been voided with SKA St. Petersburg for now. And if the day ever comes where he goes back to play in the KHL, obviously he'll go back and play for St. Petersburg. Hopefully that's no time soon. Now, the news has not been officially announced by the Flyers. They've been teasing it, of course, but it's a foregone conclusion now. It's Michkov has said his goodbyes. He says he's looking forward to playing in the NHL. Michkov's going to play for the Flyers next season. Jack, it happened. And it hasn't even been a full year, draft to draft.
Right. Isn't that crazy?
Play for the Flyers, right? Can you believe it?
I mean, you got to look at Briere and be like, damn. I mean, not even a full year. He fell to 7. It did feel like some of the people that passed on him, some of the teams, particularly Montreal, it is what it is. That was the big thing. He'll never come over. It'll never happen. I remember going into the draft last year, our own fan base, and I can't necessarily disagree with them, saying, like, I'd rather take like a Ryan Leonard and know what I have than risk it on Michkov, even though Michkov is clearly the better prospect. And going into that draft, we were Ryan Leonard fans. This is who we want. This makes the most sense. But we were always curious, like, who's going to take Michkov? And then, like, right before the draft, those rumors about him and the Flyers came out a little bit, but it wasn't nothing crazy, set in stone. They were trying to trade up for him themselves. We heard about those rumored deals. They land him at 7. We go ape shit, but there was still that lingering. It's Russia, 3-year contract that's so far down the line. Here we are. 1 year off the contract. He's already coming over. He's going to be a stud. Next year is going to be one of the most anticipated Flyer seasons since, I don't know, Yager, Pronger. Like, take your pick. It's unbelievable that it happened. I am having a little bit of fun watching certain, I don't want to group them all together, but certain Montreal fan bases kind of melt, and certain pungents out there, certain, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Just making dumbass excuse after dumbass excuse. It's unbelievable. But even some other shows that I follow, like the reason that it came out that he didn't want to be in, I can't remember, pardon me for exactly where he was at, but it reminded him of his father who had passed away. And I got people on those shows, that's not the case. Yeah, that sounds all well and good, but he didn't want to play this style with ska or SKA and da-da-da. I'm like, they didn't want to play him. It had nothing to do with that stuff. Why are you making excuses like Michkov's a bad, he's like a secret cutter and we don't realize it yet, and he's a bad teammate. I'm like, there was a little bit to that. There was a little bit to what I had heard about him being a bad teammate was he was just so much better than everybody else. He expected the players to play to his level, and it took him like a little bit to realize, like, yeah, they're not all as good as you. Take it easy. Since then, there's been like nothing on that front, but so many non-Flyers fans have been trying to throw cold water on this, and no matter how they can throw an ocean on it at this point, now that he's coming over, they're just going to look stupid. They already look stupid. They continue to double down and look even dumber, and this is going to be one hell of a year, one hell of an offseason. Makes me cannot wait for the draft. I guess he's going through visa issues or whatnot. It's like the next big hurdle. So we might have to wait to mid-July or all July, I heard, to actually physically see him or something. Whatever. Who cares? He's coming over. He's going to be amazing. He's going to be great. And it's going to affect, I think, at least a little bit what the Flyers do this offseason. That's exciting. Everything's exciting. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, and I think we're at the point now where I mean, I've come down a little bit, right? The surprise of it all is kind of worn off, and now it's okay. Michkov's coming over. The draft is in 2 days. The Flyers, they need to sign Travis Konecny still. He's due to be, he's able to be re-signed, I believe, July 1st. There's decisions to be made now. You have Michkov on a 3-year ELC, assuming he's going to come really cheap and he's going to be good right away. What are you going to do with the roster? Like that's where my mind is at now. I thought in the beginning, the first 24 hours, I wasn't thinking about, oh, what are they going to do here? What are they going to do there? I was just happy the kid is here. Michkov's coming. And now that that's kind of somewhat worn off, it's kind of I'm back in. All right, well, what are the Flyers going to do at 12? They're talking and they're supposedly talking to teams in the top 10. Ottawa was rumored, and we'll get to some of those. Utah is a team that I've mentioned in some of my videos for the rumor videos and whatnot. They're my wild card team, Utah. I think they're going to try to make a splash, or at least a couple this offseason. I think Utah's going to be they're going to try to do the opposite of what the Coyotes are doing. They're going to do something to try to bring their fans in. They're rumored to be looking for a top pair defenseman. We'll see what that is. But yeah, the Flyers. Now I'm looking to see, okay, what are the Flyers going to do here, right? And I mean, let's get into that. So the first kind of, let's just knock off Konecny here. What do you want to do with Konecny, Jack? Now, Michkov's here. If he's not the top line right winger this year, he's going to be very soon. And that's Konecny's spot. What happens with Konecny? He's due for a big raise.
Yeah, I mean, we all did our stay or go segment and whatnot. And when it came down to rebuilding this team, we were, I'm not saying I'll drive him to the airport or anything, but I was more interested in moving him for assets and using those assets to acquire what you needed. That's not going to happen. Like where we're at, even with Michkov, I think I read and heard that Michkov coming over, it only gave the Flyers a more of a leg to stand on in negotiations, because it's not like they really need TK and they can play a little bit more hardball on the money, but I think that's all that's going to happen. So what I think happens is they do sign him. They do sign him for the max term. It's the money. I don't know. Still not happy with it starting with a 9 at all. Hopefully they can get that down. We'll see. But I do think he gets re-signed, and he has played some left. So I do think if they want to try Michkov on the first line, which I think you do, they'll change some things up. They'll do some things. But if you're just from day one, I would just move TK to the left. I would see where Coots is at. Probably start my top line with Coots, TK to his left, Michkov to his right. I mean, it's like a dream scenario in my eyes in that regard, just for next season. We'll ultimately see what Torts does, and who knows, but that's where I'm at. They're probably going to re-sign TK, as much as some of us think that's not the right decision. But something, it is good that Michkov's coming over, and there is a winger on our team that is at this time better than him. By how much? Probably not a lot, but he's an established NHL star. He's the best player offensively on the Flyers, and having Michkov play with him would only benefit him. And at the end of the day, when this team starts to mold into what it's going to be, I obviously envision different line mates for Michkov, but just going into next year, putting him with your quote unquote 2 best players in Coots and TK would not be a bad thing at all. And then obviously as the season goes on, things are going to get shuffled and moved around, but that's where I sit today. I don't see them moving TK. I think a guy like Farabee should be, but the thing on Farabee is there's not much interest right now from what I've heard. Teams are calling about TK, knowing the Flyers are not trading him at this time. But if this goes past the July 1st, because that's the deadline. That's the start of it, when they can re-sign him or extend him, I should say. And if he's not re-signed right away, meaning we have a deal in place, we love each other, let's go, then that's when, it's like, well, maybe there's trouble in paradise here a little bit. As Charlie O'Connor said, and I agree with this, typically when a team wants to bring back a player, that player wants to stay in the city, a deal does get done. That's always how it's been, but it's not perfect either. So yeah, I do think TK stays. I hope they makes a move elsewhere. We have some names. I don't know the interest in some of those names, but hopefully something happens. And I won't go too far with certain rumored deals and whatnot, but I would hope that some of these other players are the ones on the way out of here.
Yeah, it's interesting because he is an older guy. I mean, older on this team. I think he's 27, 28 years old. He is due for a raise. How significant a raise? You know, the numbers that obviously are being kicked around are, and we mentioned on the show before, anytime you hear an exaggerated number, I think 10 million was the first number we heard, it's getting fed to the talking heads from the agent. You know what I mean? So is TK going to get 10 million? No, he's not. Right. But it's going to get everyone all excited and yada, yada. And, is TK a $9 million player? I don't think so. I think the argument there is the cap's going up. I think TK between 8 and 8.5 is perfectly fine. I think that's reasonable, for what he's done. I know he's been basically a point per game player the last 2 seasons. I can't remember the exact number, but there was only if he scored 100 points, he played in 104 games, something like that. So I don't know. Is he worth? I don't think he. So here's my thing, Jack, and I really like TK. Like I've kind of turned around on him and all that stuff. You remember, like the old days, it wasn't a big TK guy, but I think he's realizing his potential. Can he be better? I don't know. I think this might be what he is, and that's perfectly fine. If TK comes with a hard 9 and he's not going under it, then I think you need to explore maybe moving him, and it sucks. But if the Flyers are really doing a rebuild and they're trying to do things the right way, I don't think they can budge with cap stuff. You know what I mean? And it kind of, like I said, it stinks because we all love TK. He's a great player, a lot of fun to watch. I don't think they have a player like him on the roster until they just acquired Michkov, which, a lot of people have really been yet to watch Michkov play. But it is a tough situation. And if the right offer's there for TK, I think we have to be okay doing it, right? Like it's for the better of the team. And I think we all trust Briere and, Jones and Torts to get the right deal back. If he takes under 9, I say sign him. If it's 8.75, yeah, bring him back. Big TK fan. We have JR in the comments. Trade Farabee. Easy contract to move. Should be a decent return. And that's interesting, Jack, because we're going to get into a couple of rumors next, and we can kind of start tying that in now. I just put out a video that Marty Nietzsche's might be going to Buffalo. I think there's a rumor out there from Pierre LeBrun that Buffalo offered a first-round pick. So they're at top of the line right now for Marty Nietzsche's. And I'm wondering, because Buffalo's been rumored for Joel Farabee, are they trying to get the Flyers to maybe up the ante or something? Are they trying to get the Flyers to take a deal on the table for Farabee? Is Farabee the backup plan for Buffalo? Because Nietzsche's is a left winger. I think he's better than Farabee, of course. So maybe there's something there for JR bringing up Farabee.
So yeah, and that's the player that I go to right away every time when you're looking for selling off your winger depth, because you just signed Tippett long term. Forrester's young, Brink is young, Michkov is the definition of young. So like, who's left? TK and Farabee. Well, you're looking at the only way that I think TK gets traded at this point is if they can't get to a number they can agree on, because just because the cap is going up, that doesn't mean you make bad decisions and sign TK for 9.75 or something crazy. Well, the cap went up. All right, well, that doesn't mean you start getting stupid either. It's not unlimited. So if it gets to a point where they just can't budge, then maybe, it sucks, but maybe it's for the better of the team at that point. And they do end up trading him. Unfortunately, in a scenario like that, I feel like they get a little bit less. But naturally, Farabee makes the most sense in a world where they're going to probably re-sign TK. The interest level on Farabee, from what I had heard, is not nearly as high as some other players around the league that are being moved or potentially being moved, and the prospects available, especially when you consider some of these prospects that won out of certain teams as well. There's just more out there than to look at Farabee, who had a career year point-wise, but is like the odd man out, on the outside looking in. So it's very strange, the Farabee situation, but from a bird's eye view, it makes a lot of sense to move Farabee. But do I think a lot of teams have as much interest as we deem they should at this time? Unfortunately, no. So I don't know what happens in that regard.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think the Flyers are definitely a team to watch. I think they're definitely going to make a move. And let's kind of move on to the Ottawa rumor, Jack. And uh, what was the rumor? The Flyers were trying to move up to 7 with Ottawa, right?
I don't even know if it said move up. Just that Flyers had a framework of a deal in place that involved 7. We assume that was to move up. Sorry, I got this weird thing. We assume that was to move up. What baffles me is this deal apparently is no longer on the table because Ottawa just acquired Allmark from Boston, and they did a hell of a job getting that deal. However, they gave up a first round pick this year. It was it this year? What was the first rounder, or was it next year?
I think it was the 25th overall pick.
I don't want to get confused with the first rounder in 2025 or the 25th overall pick. I thought it was a 25th overall pick. You know what? I'll get the details just so I'm not sure.
I think that's what it is.
So apparently because of that, the deal with Briere is off the table. And that to me is like, well, why does that matter? What deal was in place that involved the 25th from Ottawa? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't see how big of a deal was this that we were getting that back, or was there a third team involved, or I don't know. But either way, it sounds like those talks, they haven't slowed. It sounds like they're dead. And that's also, I believe, was it Elliot Friedman, I believe, mentioned that they were cold right now. I'm not sure the verbiage he used, but also added that talks with Ottawa, they don't seem to be going anywhere right now. And to the point where I believe Flyers are one of the teams that have reached out to Utah or poking around with Utah. Utah definitely made it known they're looking to move the 6 for a top pair defenseman, to which, and if I'm jumping rumors, I apologize, but who is offering a top pair defenseman? Those teams, like, is there a bad team that can offer top pair defenseman, like a true top tier defenseman? Am I missing something?
See, that's the thing. There's a lot of teams around the league that play guys on their top pair,
right?
And maybe I mean, you would assume that these guys know their stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, Cam York and Travis Sanheim play top pair, but they're not really top pair guys. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe the Flyers come in and they go, hey, Travis Sanheim's been playing top pair minutes. Can we convince you that he's a top pair defenseman? You know what I mean?
Well, I also thought or are they looking at a team like Florida who's going to have trouble, signing people? But I don't think they have. Truthfully, I mean this. Does Florida have a top pair defenseman in your eyes? I think they have a lot of good defensemen. I actually think it's something the Flyers could emulate with a lot of good defensemen. But do I look at that team and say he's a number one defenseman in the NHL? First name that comes to mind is maybe an Ekblad. I don't think so. I don't think he's a number one. I don't. I think he's very good. I don't think he's a number one defenseman. I think when you think of number one defenseman, I think a lot of other names come to mind. He's not a Victor Hedman type.
Yeah, I think he's more of a top pair guy than anybody on the Flyers.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, that doesn't count. Come on.
Right, but you know what I mean. No,
my point is to kind of what you're saying. Are they looking at something like that? This guy's played on the top pair defenseman. Does that make the trade look better to the fans if they don't deem it as strong as a return as they would like for the 6th overall?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I wonder if a team like Ottawa comes to mind, who's got a plethora of defensemen. Is Jacob Chikrin a top pair guy? I think he's a top pair guy, but he's a bona fide, number one guy. I don't think so. No. See, that's what I mean. There's a lot of guys probably maybe on the edge of top pair, and it's you would give up the 6 for that. And
that's what I mean. That's in a defensive heavy draft. Yeah. You can get a real nice defensive piece at 6. You're going to trade for, I don't know. Now I understand that they want to make a splash. It's a new franchise, obviously, or new city rather. But it doesn't mean you get stupid. So I'm curious if that's just verbiage they're using to try to get the best return they could get. But when I look at a team who can move a good defenseman like that, who comes to mind? And I struggle with that. Now, obviously, here in Philly land, if we're talking, you're not offering York, so it's got to be Sanheim, right?
Yeah.
So what's a deal like that look like? The 32nd Sanheim and, I don't know, Lawton? Is that to get it done? You need more? I think you need more because how good do you think Sanheim is?
Yeah, I I have no idea. Like,
Exactly.
I don't know. Like the 6th overall pick. I mean, who don't they want at 6 that they'd be willing to trade for, a veteran guy? Or, I mean, obviously everybody needs a top pair guy. To me, there aren't as many bona fide top pair guys in the NHL as, people want to say there are. Do you know
I
what I
agree.
mean? Or maybe it's
Absolutely.
just that, like, I feel like I have an expectation, right? Like bona fide top pair guy. Like who comes to your mind when somebody says that, right? Like Victor Hedman, Miro Heiskanen,
Cale McCarr.
Cam McCarr.
Yeah.
Yeah, like guys like that. So when people go, oh, Cam York's a top pair guy, I'm like, by default, he's a very good
Right.
player, but he
Like
has to. So someone's got to play those minutes.
Well, I was in a fantasy league, and it was 12-man league, and like a guy like Ekblad was in free agency. You know what I mean? Like he may play on the top pair. That's a great team. They have that firepower. They have the goaltending. You have a really good defensive core in general. Yeah, and they won the cup. They were good, which is good for the news for the Flyers. If they never find that true number one defenseman, it can be done. But like you play on the top pair, that doesn't necessarily single you as a number one defenseman.
Exactly,
And then
yeah.
like I look at a team like I almost said the Jazz, like Utah, and I'm like, so who trade? You have to be young. You're not going to get an older guy. Like, that doesn't make sense for where your squad's at. So you'd have to have some youth in a trade like that for the guy coming back, the defenseman, top pair defenseman. He can't be 33 years old, 31 years old. He's got to have some youth to him. I'm like, who trades a guy like that? I don't see it. I don't see it. It makes more sense for them to stay put and draft like Boyum or Dickinson or somebody like that.
Yeah, I get the sense maybe they don't want to wait. And that's why I think Utah is going to be like the Flyers should be kicking the tires on like, hey, what are you guys doing?
Take
Right? Because
advantage of it.
the Coyotes were always the team that would draft. Like last year they drafted Simashev. They drafted who's the guy they took? Soderstrom, I think in the first round a couple years back when the Flyers took York. So they're taking these defensemen that take years and years to develop. And I get the sense that they want to do things a little different, right? And I was a big advocate where draft forwards, trade for D, draft forwards, trade for D, because D takes so long to really, show their true potential. So I'm interested to see what Utah's going to do here, because if they wanted a D, there's going to be D there. You mentioned Buyum. Zane Parrott could be there. Sam Dickinson could be there. Salayev could be there. Like there's a handful of guys to
Plenty
take.
of names. Yeah.
And so this just tells me like they want something now. They want a guy that they don't have to wait around to develop. Maybe they feel their forward group is ready to compete, and let's start building our defense up a little bit. Flyers should be knocking. I'm not sure if they can really convince anybody that Travis Sanheim is a legit top pair defenseman, but they should be working their ass off if if Utah even picks up the phone for Travis Sanheim.
I mean,
and I know he's got a no trade clause, so nobody go crazy here, but those things can be worked around.
Of course. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see them after the Ottawa thing came apart because there were so many pieces that we knew Ottawa liked, and they were trying to play for now. They had a team, more of a team that was win now, believe it or not. They looked like they just needed to tweak some things, and adding Olmark was one of them. That was a great move. But when I look at Utah, I'm like, they're okay, I guess. Like I don't see them making one or two moves and they're gonna let's push for the playoffs. Like they got a lot more they have to do out there. But I do understand bringing in a big name. So I don't know who that is. I ultimately don't think it gets done. Very rarely do these trades happen. The 6th overall pick, I don't know, man. I don't see that happening.
I'm looking at their roster now, and they do not currently have a defenseman under contract on their NHL roster. So I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Well, there you go. Then you can do Risto and Sanheim. How's that? You're right. There's no way.
Dude,
we'll retain half the salary. Come on, let's go.
Like they have so they have 3 RFAs: Sean Dursey, JJ Moser, and Juuso Valimaki. 3 RFAs that they need to sign, 25, 24, 25 years old. Josh Brown and Travis Dermott are both UFAs. I would assume they're not bringing them back. So they need to fill out their back end. And I know you're just kidding with the Sanheim Ristolainen thing, but the Flyers have a lot of D, and they have a lot of like guys that can play in the NHL this year. They haven't signed Zamula yet, who they were rumored to be signing a couple weeks ago. They just signed Nick Seeler, so I don't think he's going anywhere. Jamie Drysdale they just traded for. I don't know how tied they are to him. It sounds like they love him. Flyers have Sanheim, who I'm not sure whatever. I don't want to get too tied up on the Sanheim thing here, but there could be a match. Like Ristolainen's around, like they can help them fill out their defense core down there. They're pretty well under the salary cap, so it's like
Well, yeah. Just feels for the 6th. It just feels way too good to be true. Some of the names, I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, the first name that came up for me is Travis Konecny. When I heard Ottawa's up, potentially moving to 7, Utah potentially moving to 6, and it's like, well, I don't really want to move Konecny, but if there's an opportunity to move up, yeah, then I think that the only way you do that is if you're 97% sure that you're going to get your guy, right? Because if you're not going to get your guy, then all you're doing is giving away a guy for a guy that you hope pans out, kind of thing. Right. And when I mean get your guy, I mean a guy that you're 100% sure of is going to be a very good top line player for your team for years and years to come.
How old, real quick before we get off the topic, how old is Shea Theodore?
Shea Theodore,
28.
He played for Vegas.
Yeah, he's 28. He'll be 29 and starting next season. I do know that they're having issues. Vegas probably has to move him. I'm not sure I think he's got some time left on his deal. I don't think he's an under 60 free agent, but he's been rumored in deals like a Marner trade with the Leafs. So I wonder if he was a name. But even that like 29, yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world. But I just for 6th overall, that's a lot, man.
Yeah, I have no idea. We had a list of top 10 trades that have gone down the last, 10, 15 years that you had?
Well, it went back to like 91. Wendell Clark was like the last one on the list. Wendell Clark. Most people listening probably don't even know who that is.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's gonna be fun though. And if the Flyers aren't kicking the tires, they damn well should be. I don't think Farabee gets any of that done. If it's just to move up from 12 to 7, Jack. Well, we don't know. Ottawa said that those trades are pretty much done. Or 12 to 6. Yeah. I mean, there's no connection with Lawton there, with Lawton in Utah.
I would imagine they wouldn't be against a player of that caliber, but as a piece, I would say a little bit more than a sweetener, but it's a piece. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you give him a defenseman, a Lawton, and a 12th, to me, it depends on who's on the board. And even then, it's like, I don't know. I just don't know. From what they're asking and what we could possibly do, I think there's a talent gap, unfortunately. So yeah. You never know. Sometimes they want to make a splash for the sake of making a splash.
It's going to be fun. Either way, Flyers are sure to get a guy at 12. It's there's a lot of good players, and I think it goes to like 13, 14. So they're guaranteed to get somebody here. Hey, Chris Fiore remembers Wendell Stud. Wendell Clark.
Wendell Stud.
Wendell Stud.
Yeah, he would have been a great Flyer, but I remember mostly as a Leaf. But yeah, no, good. We got a couple people that actually mentioned it. Yep.
Clark Probert had legendary battles, Mr. Otter Pocket. So we got a couple older gentlemen such as you and I in the chat, Jack.
Good to know. Love it.
They love him unconditionally. I'm going to assume that this is for TK, Mr. Otter Pockets. All right. So we're kind of breezing through our episode here, Jack. The draft is in 2 days, and we haven't really talked about it so much yet in this episode. If you guys want more draft talk, you can go back to our earlier episodes, episode 40, 39, 30. We've been talking draft for like the last month or so. So you can find a lot of draft talk there. We're pretty much set in terms of draft. So tonight, I want to hear your ideal scenario for Friday night, Jack. What do you want to see play out? What do you hope to see play out? And then we'll get to our what do we think is going to happen.
So we're talking about the pipe dream now and reality later?
Not even so much pipe dream, but it's just like, what do you hope they do kind of thing?
All right. Well, there's been so much talk about them moving up that I'm at a point now where I really hope something happens. Like I can't. It's been so much. Oh, the deal's in place. We just need to get there.
Yeah.
2.5 days go by, that's off the table. But then Utah comes out, hey, we're looking for this, and Flyers are interested. So it's like I'm kind of hoping that something does to get done, and I hope that somebody's. I cannot envision a world where a guy like Demidov with Michkov and Fedotov coming over now, the Russian factor not being as much of an issue, clearly. Demidov has 1 year left on his whatever contract he's got. I can't see him falling. I can't. There's no way he gets by Montreal. If he should go number 2 overall, if not 3, but you never know. I can't see him falling. So I'm like, who's the guy the Flyers have to trade up for? Is it Lidstrom? I mean, to be honest with you, I'm a little worried about that back. I'm not going to lie. As we get closer and as you start to give up assets to move into that range, I get nervous. And I was talking to people I know in the medical field about that stuff. And I said, they're not necessarily the biggest hockey fans, but I told them what the, herniated disc. He's like, yeah, it's going to, it's probably going to bug him at least a little bit the rest of his career. I was like, oh, that's wonderful. His career hasn't started yet. It's not by any means a death sentence or anything like that. But when you're moving assets like this to move up, I mean, Lidstrom probably be a top 3 guy if it wasn't for this. And he hasn't dropped too much, but the fact that his skill and he's dropped it, there's concern there. So I'm kind of long-winded answer for that, but unrealistic expectation. They do move up to say 6 and they draft like a guy, like a Demidov, but I don't see him I really truly don't see him being there, but then they get like a Boyum or they get like I've come around on Sam Dickinson a lot too. I'm a fan. I don't think it's necessary to trade up with the way this draft is for one of those guys. So at 12, say they just only drafted 12. For me, I want one of 2 players. This is where I've landed. Yakimchuk, obviously. We've been on him for most of the offseason or the playoffs, I should say. And Catton. I would go one of those 2 players, and I'm actually leaning Catton more. I would be very happy with the first round. So my pipe dream, I guess, is they somehow trade up and they snag somebody, Silyov, maybe, like if he were to fall, because my top 4, I think the top 4 is starting to really solidify itself. Now, I can't tell you the perfect order outside of Celebrini at 1, but I personally think that Levshunov goes 2 to the Blackhawks. I think Demidov would go 3 to the Ducks. Columbus, I actually think, could take. This is the wrong mock, Jimmy. I think Lindstrom doesn't get past Montreal. I think he does go to Montreal. Here's the thing. I'm seeing like guys like Yakimchuk jump in this draft. Like they're where they were a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. They're now being rated higher and higher, which tells me why you're trading up. Do you have somebody you absolutely have to have? Is that what it is? Well, I'm glad they have identified a guy they like, but now I'm kind of like, is that as sexy now that you're trading up and getting the guy that you thought you were already going to get? So that's where I'm kind of like, So Silviev, I have him with Columbus. I blanked a second ago on that. So it's hard for me to put together a pipe dream that doesn't involve the name Demidov. So I'll just stay with that. Some goofy set of circumstances. He falls to 6. They trade with Utah. I don't know what that package looks like, and they get him. That's the pipe dream. At 12, and I'm saying in a fall scenario, not trading up, Berkeley Catton, Ricardo Yakimchuk, and I'm leaning Catton. That's where I'm at.
Okay. I think Flyers fans would be happy with that. I would be.
It wouldn't be as exciting as everything we were hearing, but at the end of the day, Catton is a great need at center. And we're already building a defense in my mind that could be much more like Florida's, where instead of having true studs, you have just a great core, a real nice core, and you'll have so much firepower up front that hopefully you figure out the goaltending. Hopefully Ericsson's your guy. If not, they've already drafted plenty to try it out and see who they can get. And, hopefully you can make that work. That's where I'm at with the current build of this team.
So I have a dream, Jack. And my dream is Ivan Demidov. Yes, that's not the correct spelling, but it's close enough.
It's almost demon tough.
And I don't think that it's as crazy to say. I think I think moving to 3 is a possibility. And I'm going to tell you
3?
why.
Wait,
Yeah.
all right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
With Anaheim, right?
Oh boy.
So I think Anaheim wants a defenseman. And I think they're thinking the exact same way you are. Why would they take a defenseman at 3 when they could potentially get one at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? Right? Why would they waste that pick? Now they can draft their defenseman and get whatever extra a team like the Flyers is going to trade them. Do you know what I mean? So if you're the Flyers, you have Michkov coming. I mean, this is your dream scenario here, Jack. Michkov could be here by, let's say he's here by the draft. He could be the one walking out announcing Demidov at 3. So
Yeah.
you were saying this weeks ago, and I'm like, that is pretty funny, but I feel like that could happen. I feel like what's his name? The NBC guy is at the airport right now. Why is he at the airport? Who's supposed to be arriving? Is it Michkov? Right? Or can they put him on a plane straight to Vegas? Like, what's going on here?
I think it's shorter to Vegas.
So I think there is a possibility that there could be something with Anaheim. I mean, we saw it with Gauthier and Drysdale. We didn't hear a peep about trade negotiations until it happened. So that's my dream scenario, a trade with Anaheim. I think it makes sense. I don't think it's crazy for Anaheim. I think it'd be better if the Flyers could acquire another top 10 pick, maybe later in the top 10 to combine with the 12 or something like that. And I realize people don't like that because that we're giving up 2 guys. In my opinion, because I see Lyndon's comment here, if we get 3, what do you think about Lindstrom? In my opinion, there's two bona fide studs in this draft. Celebrini is the only 1C. And in my opinion, Demidov is the only other surefire star in the draft. So I would be okay with giving up if I was able to acquire another top 10 pick, or if it's, whoever the other player is. Maybe it's Farabee, right? We've been saying maybe Farabee to Anaheim, Farabee and 12 and something else. I don't know. The 32 to move up to 3. And now all of a sudden you have Demidov and a Michkov on your top line. Like, we get to watch these kids grow together for the next however many years. That's my dream scenario. And I don't think it's that crazy. I realize it's a little crazy. A lot of things have to go right. But that's my dream scenario. You can see it a little bit, though. Just at least can you see it?
3 is tough.
It is going to be tough.
That's going to cost you. There is, we've made trades with them before. So, I mean, there's an open line of communications. The only
what's the guy's name? Is it Bob Murray?
No. Oh God.
What the hell's the guy's name? He's
The
with the
GM
Flyers now. He used to be the GM of Anaheim, right? Is that who it is?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Pat Verbeek, the current GM of Anaheim. Yeah,
No.
Bob. He's with the Flyers right now. I know they had the old Kings guy.
I can't remember the name. I thought it was Bob Murray. That's who helped make the trade with Drysdale.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know they have the old Kings GM is Lombardi is still with the Flyers, but yeah, maybe I did not know that
connection there. Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't be against it. The only thing I think to throw some cold water on that is they have recently been rumored to like Sylviev. Am I saying that right?
Salayev, yeah.
Salayev, yeah. That could throw some cold water on that. He's the one of the 4 guys I have definitely being top 5ers. He's the one I thought could, if he is not top 5, he'll slip out because they just don't know. 6'7", tons of ability, but those guys are like big bust factors. Unfortunately, we know more than anybody.
Maybe he ends up there at 12.
I would love that, but I'd also be nervous as hell.
Do you know what I mean? I was just in a mock and
it's getting silly.
Fun mock, but I drafted Silyev at 12. That's the way the mock went, and I mean, I don't know how it's going to go on Friday, but there's opportunity, I think, and maybe opportunity that's been there that hasn't been there in past drafts, because like I said, it's for, and I know it's unpopular for me. There's two must-have players in this draft. After two, it's like, okay, I'm happy with whoever falls to me.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And
I get that.
if Chicago's going to go Levshunov at 2, I'm picking up the phone every single day and I'm calling it Pat Verbeek. What do you need for 3? What do you need for 3? Because I don't know if Montreal is going to make the same mistake twice. You know, I think you would assume that they would take Demidov at 5. After, I mean, going just by fan reactions, you know, scouts, whatever, you would assume he doesn't slip past 5.
I don't know why Columbus wouldn't take them, you know, so I give you that. I understand why you're targeting 3 based on how the draft's predicted to go. I mean, you never know, but I get it.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be interesting. And now if the Flyers end up staying at 12, I'm with you. I'm good with any of the defense prospects that fall. If they're all gone and, you know, one of the only guys left is Yakimchuk, perfectly fine with Yakimchuk. You guys have heard on past episodes, Flyers need that bomb shot from the point.
Yak bomb.
Provide that. Somebody in here didn't want anything to do with them. Let me find the comment.
I would like to know.
I would like to know why. I want no part of Yakimchuk, Linden 49 says. And Linden's a pretty smart guy. Great comments usually. So I'd be curious to hear why no Yakimchuk, Linden. Or is there just another guy you prefer? Oh, it looks like he prefers Catton. So there you go. I'd be happy with Catton, of course.
One or the other, right? I think the Flyers like both players. I think more recently I've heard that they are higher on Catton. Russ Cohen was not too big of a Yakimchuk when we had him on fan too. He doesn't think the game will translate. I honestly think they'll both be pretty good. So I think players are smart enough to they know what they can do at lower levels, and when they get to higher levels, they tighten things up. At the end of the day, though, who the hell knows? But I think we're going to get somebody just fine at 12, unless we get that dream scenario. I haven't heard anything about the Ducks open to moving the pick. But again, you never know. That is a high draft pick, though. I mean, very, very rarely do picks like that get swapped, but it's the first time for everything.
Flyers have ammunition, and what good is it doing just sitting in your pocket? You know what I mean? True. If they got money to spend or chips to move into the pile, let's move them in. Because I mean, what are the odds? This 32. I mean, we had Mitchell Brown on a few weeks ago, and we talked about who they could draft at 32, and he mentioned Andrew Basha, and the ceiling on Basha is likely a third liner, right? So as much as you need these kind of players, if the 32 somehow tips the scale a little bit, toss it in. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like don't hang on to all this stuff. If you got a chance, go get your guy. And you know, there may not even be a chance. This is just for fun. But yeah, Yakimchuk, Catton, any of these defensemen that fall to 12 is fine. Obviously, Bouillon would be the dream. I love that player. I love watching him play. I think he's only going to get better. So yeah, any of the defensemen. Catton's fun, and I'm going to say this just because when I watch him, I see a little bit of, and I don't think this is out of line either. I see a little bit of Claude Giroux in Catton in his game, not calling him Giroux. I don't know if he's ever going to put up the points Giroux had, whatever, but he's got a little bit of, like, he plays somewhat like Giroux stylistically, I think. And he's fun to watch. So, and they need that guy on the left side. So I'd be happy with Catton as well. Yeah. Oh, Chris Fiore. Go ahead, Jack.
We doing a live stream this year, Jimmy boy?
Yeah, I think we are. I think we're going to do a live stream. Got credentialed for Vegas. They let me know on Monday, 2 days ago Monday, that I got credentialed. So I'm not going to do all that running around, unfortunately, because this could be the last remote draft, at least for some time. So yeah, I think we're going to hang out this year and do a live stream. You going to hang out, Chris? Are you local? You can come hang out if you want, or hang out with us on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube's fun. You know, we'll do our best to be as engaged as we can be, but I've always been a draft nut, and I'm glued to that TV. And last year was great. I mean, between the Will Smith pick, the Reinbacher pick, and eventually the Michkov pick, that was an absolute blast. Can only imagine this year is going to be just as fun with all the uncertainty. You know, we pretty much knew how things were going to go last year outside of Michkov, but this year I really don't know. There's a lot more trade chatter, at least from I believe. I don't remember perfectly, but I think there's a lot more, particularly with the Flyers. So yeah, I'm hoping something big goes down and we will finish off the draft unless something big happens with a Flyers pick. So that's good that's great as well.
Absolutely. One more thing here from Sean C, because we are doing our stay or go. We didn't finish yet. We didn't forget about it. We're saving it for July. Sean C, if we want to overanalyze social media behavior, Michkov and Eric Johnson have followed each other on Instagram. Whoa. EJ is back as the number 7. So I don't think they signed Johnson yet, right, Jack? But
I don't think so.
they're talking about it. And I think we had him on our roster, right? As like an 8 or something.
As an 8, 7, 8, whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
That's funny.
He's your Mark Stahl, and I think he's a better version of that. But some people are none too happy about it. But I read that the team likes the way he carries himself, and the young players look up to him and ask him a lot of questions about his Stanley Cup run and whatnot. I think it's more important off the ice than obviously he is on the ice. So yeah, it makes sense to me.
He was very positive during his time here.
We need that. We need that.
A good ambassador of the franchise, you might say. You know,
totally agree.
He's got a lot of friends around the league. He's played for a lot of good teams. Somebody asked him, "Hey, what's Philly like?" He's going to say good things. And this is how you get free agents, word of mouth, right? Like Eric Johnson, obviously when they signed him, over the hill, 35 years old, yada, yada. In his heyday, very good player, though. So he's respected around the league. It would be a strategic reason off the ice, like you said, to bring him back. They're not going to sign Eric Johnson because they want to win more hockey games, if that makes sense. Right. So interesting. Yeah, good point to bring up there, Sean. Let's see where we're at in our topic list here. All right, so we got a lot of the big stuff. Michkov's coming. We talked Konecny a little bit. We talked some rumors, Ottawa, Utah. Talked a little draft, right? You guys know who we want, Yakimchuk, Catton, our dream scenarios. Let's get to some house cleaning here, Jack. Ian LaPerriere signed an extension with the Phantoms. What are your thoughts?
I really don't know. I mean, I guess from what I heard, the organization likes that some of the younger players they expect to be NHLers did progress when they had short stints down there. You know, your Foresters and people of that nature. That's fine with me. I think it was Frank Saravelli tweeted out like that he resigned. It was like, oh, future NHL head coach. I don't see that at all. I really don't. I guess it's a source throwing back. He must be a source of Frank Saravelli's, and he's trying to give him a nod because it makes no sense to me to say that. I don't see anything about him. Oh, yeah, that guy deserves to be in the NHL because the only thing we remember from the NHL was a historically bad penalty kill. I don't want to shit on him too much because he's a great guy, but we're talking about jobs here. So, yeah, I mean, it's the Phantoms. I'm not going to go crazy. I like the idea of, I don't like when they move guys in and out so consistently, having that familiarity at a level like that, a well-liked guy in the organization. I'm fine with it. You know, it doesn't move the needle one way or another. Yeah.
So LaPerriere played for the Flyers in 2010. He was a Flyers assistant coach from 2013 to 2022. And he's been the Phantoms head coach since the 2021-2022 season. During his tenure with the Phantoms, he was 29-32 in his first season, 37, 29-6 in his second, and 32, 31, and 9 in his third. So 2 out of 3 years over 500, made the playoffs in one, lost in the first round. Actually, they made the playoffs again this year, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they made they did. I think they won like a play-in round, and then the Hershey, who's great, like smoked them. Did you see who won though? I think I don't. Whoever won, former Flyers prospect Matthew Strome scored like the overtime winning goal.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, fourth rounder.
Hershey Bears. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Bears again. Jesus.
Nice goal too. Yeah, it was pretty nice.
Yeah, so there you go.
Sean C, I'm a Phantom season ticket holder. They are a real frustrating team to watch, and the Calder Cup playoff format is very rewarding to mediocre teams. So I'm trying to figure out which side you're on there, Sean. Are you a LaPerriere fan or not?
I don't think so.
From what I gather is he just stop the blah, blah, blah and give us meat, Bob Ultraman. I don't know what that means.
What we talked about at the beginning of the show, I think, is what he wants.
What was that?
The draft, the rumors, and all that stuff.
Oh, then you missed it, Bobby. You show up
50
late,
minutes
that's what
in.
happens.
Ultraman's ultra light.
So LePerriere obviously is well liked within the organization. They like him because he's a little tough down there. He when the kids go down there, he doesn't take any shit, kind of thing.
Good.
Maybe he's not getting the best results record-wise, but I think that's okay. They're just worried about player development. And I'm not even sure it's, skill-wise. They're just trying to develop maybe some mental toughness down there. I don't know. You saw it with Cam York. Like, they're drafting guys with skill. Send them to Lappy, let them chew them up a little bit, and send them back to the Flyers. That's kind of what happened with York. So we'll see. Obviously, he serves some kind of purpose. They know the guy, they trust him, so they bring him back with the Phantoms.
Yeah, it seems like it's more about the prospects going to the Flyers than it is anything with the Phantoms winning, unfortunately.
Yeah. Dan chimes in. Whatever happened to the Flyers and Gauthier tidbit? Saving that for July. Like, we got draft stuff going on here. We got free agency coming. We got trades and rumors. Come on, I can't drop the Gauthier stuff while we're,
you don't want to get. I'm too happy right now to talk Cutter.
I'm going to run out of stuff to talk about in July and August.
You can't get me all fired up and pissed off now. This is a happy time.
This is a pretty spot on comment from Scott. LePerriere did nothing right, but also nothing wrong. Not sure if he makes players better. And I don't think he's a guy that Tortorella needs to worry about taking his job anytime soon either. You know what I mean? Like, he's there to coach the Phantoms in this organization. Does that make sense?
The priority, I mean, I know they want, like, when they get like playoff runs for the young guys, but priority is not like, having a winning season. It's having a good culture. What you said about chewing up players to come down and humbling them with York and guys of that nature. But then you had Allison come down and you knew they were like, okay, we're done with you, because he didn't handle it well. And out the door he goes. Maybe help pick through some of the guys on those smaller end of the scale, younger end of the scale that just aren't a good fit here, and make those who are a good fit ready for the big leagues.
Yeah. Well, speaking of ready or not ready from the big leagues, Pierre-Luc Dubois was traded once again. What is this? The third time he's been traded, Jack? He was traded from Columbus, went to Winnipeg, traded from Winnipeg, went to Los Angeles, signed a massive contract, and was just traded to Washington for Darcy Kemper. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Jack. What the hell is happening with Dubois?
He's one of those guys, man. If he don't feel like playing, he don't feel like putting the effort in, he just isn't going to do it. And he doesn't care if thousands of people see him live do it. He's just one of those guys. Obviously, we would want nothing to do with a guy like that. He would be destroyed in Philly, chewed up and spat out if he played like that. So, I mean, they were looking to get rid of him. They lost that trade even before all this happened, just flat out value-wise. He obviously has not worked out. They needed to get rid of him. He was a cancer to the locker room. And it sounds like he said he was excited to go to Washington. I'm trying to look at this from Washington's perspective. They're in a weird cap spot. They are basically hanging on with Ovi. Did you see how big Ovi looks? Like, they just need him to get the goal record. I don't see them truthfully pushing for the playoffs. If they snuck in the 8th seed, I wouldn't be all that, surprised. It's just, I saw the perfect video. It wasn't a GIF. It was a video. It just was like, it didn't work out it didn't work out. It was unrelated, but it was like, yeah, it didn't work out. It never works out. Every time they tried, it doesn't work out. And they tried it, and sure enough, it didn't work out. But it might work out for us, though. It's like, no, it's the definition of insanity. Like, it's not going to work out. It's going to end poorly. But I look at Washington. Who are they going to bring in there? They have to take these strange swings to kind of keep their team afloat, I guess. So there's a reality where he decides he wants to put forth the effort and it works out, but I think there's like a 2% chance of that. It just is what it is.
Yeah. And Zach chiming in here. Kings lost that trade when they traded for him the first time and gave him that massive deal. And I just got to say, anytime, and remember this, because this is a fact of life for everybody listening. All right. Anytime you trade 2 Italians in one deal going the other way, you're losing that deal. Right? They traded Gabe Velarde, who had a great season this year for Winnipeg, and Alex Iafallo. We should have known right there and then. Big L for Los Angeles, right? Trading 2 countrymen for a Pierre-Luc Dubois, French no less. Big mistake. So just wanted to shout that out. Good on Winnipeg for acquiring. They have a nice little collection of Italians up there, Jack. They just re-signed Dylan DeMello for a 4-year deal. Good stuff. I think Connor Hellebuck's half Italian, best goalie in the league.
If you came here for the inside scoop and rumors on the Flyers in the draft, you can at least leave knowing don't trade the Italians.
Do not do it. You know who else is half Italian? Caitlin Clark, best female basketball player in the world. Kobe Bryant was half Italian. Don't trade the Italians, is what I'm saying.
I'm half
Acquire them.
A quarter.
Tortorella.
Oh boy.
All right, let's move on. I think we have a lot of Italian haters. We're actually losing viewers, so it's a shame.
It's your fault.
Prejudice against Italian in this day and age. All right, let's move on. So we have Barclay Goodrow to San Jose. He was rumored to be available on the trade block from New York, and I believe like the very next day, what did they do? They sent him to the AHL to bury his contract and put him on waivers.
To put him on waivers, knowing he'd be picked up. That's where you had an issue, because I believe the Sharks were on his no trade list, so they just put him on waivers, and the worst team in the league, the Sharks, picked him up, and he was furious, from what I understand about that.
As he should have been. This is an NHL veteran. I know he's making millions of dollars a year, but he's picking up and relocating his life back across the country. I mean, this is a guy that's been on cup teams. It's not his fault that he signed that contract. The team offered him the contract. The team is complicit in the contract. So the only reason this is relevant is, you guys have heard me say for a couple of weeks now, players around the league will notice when you do right by the player. Right. And I know New York is New York, so I'm not sure how much something like that will hurt, their chances of acquiring big talent, because everybody wants to play in New York. But a team like the Flyers and with a player like Cam Atkinson, who's well respected around the league, if there's a way to do right by the player, you do right by it, whether that's trading him and taking on half of his salary, whatever it is, putting him in a better situation than he's in now, because he's not going to get playing time here. If they were to just let him rot on the roster, or even do what New York did and put him on waivers, that's a really bad look, in my opinion. It's just, you could say right and wrong all you want. These guys are millionaires, yada yada. There's still a human aspect to this, and players know that it's a business. They already know. So when you go out of your way to do right by the player, they take notice, and they might want to play for your organization in the future. That's all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I guess New York's got a lot of clout right now where it's not too big of a deal, but it could be down the road. So it's something the Flyers can't afford to do and really shouldn't do, unfortunately, with Atkinson until we start signing big names again. So I don't think it's the end of the world, but the Rangers weren't in a spot the Flyers were just a year and a half ago, where things were bad.
Yep. Zach, just noticed the shirt, Jim. Yeah, it's Bayside. Saw him a month ago, I think. That's my favorite band. So thanks, Zach. Jack, I think we are
my favorite podcast.
Whoa, that's a nice shirt.
My mom.
Okay, we're coming to the end of our end of our show, Jack. Anything else that you wanted to sneak in before we log off here and wrap this one up?
Unfortunately, no. I went to draft. I could not wait for the draft. This is my thing. I love it. It's so freaking close. Something's got to happen. Give me one Flyers trade in that first round. Come on, baby. Let's go. Let's get exciting. Let's get good. Let's get Demidov. I don't care if he's a winger. They'll move other wingers out. They'll make it happen. You get the best player available in the top 10. That's what you do. Make it happen. We'll have 2 Mad Russians, and the rest is going to be history.
Yeah. And Snicker chiming in real quick here. I think Zegras might be another target. Hey, why not the 3 and Zegras? Make it so, Danny.
Jesus Christ.
Make it so. But I want to know from the listeners, who do you guys want? Who do you guys want the Flyers to draft? What's your ideal trade scenario? Drop it in the comments. Let's get fun. And we'll tweet some out and bring them up on next week's show.
Yes.
So yeah, let's get your trades in, your draft picks in. make sure you guys please hit that like and subscribe button. And I think there's a little bell somewhere. Click that too for notifications for future shows. We're trying to put out a bunch of 5-10 minute shows whenever, cool things pop up, trying to grow the channel. And you guys are doing a great job helping us do that. So we really appreciate everything you guys do, hanging out with us for the hour here. We're going to wrap this show up, guys. For Jack, I'm Jim. We'll see you guys, I'm sure, tomorrow or definitely Friday.
Friday.
See you guys.
Let's go.